Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Emotional Intelligence in Project Management, presented by our Head of Management Solutions here at Educate 360, Brent Nair. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use that chat or our Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Brent.
Thanks, Mariella. Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's having a great day. And if you're here in the Mid-South, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. We're getting a little break from the heat. So hopefully everything will continue to break from the heat. But welcome. Today we're going to be talking about, I call it the squishy stuff, emotional intelligence as it relates to project management. And I call it squishy because of of you know when we think about projects a lot of time are all about, are we meeting demand, are we schedule, are we on scope, are we on cost? And projects are so much more than that. Projects are about really relationships. Projects are about how, hello, Frederick, how we work together. And keeping that in mind, we're going to focus today for the next 25 minutes or so on one side of that, and that is emotional intelligence. Um, During the session today, we're going to look at how we're going to unlock emotional intelligence and be able to EQ is another word for emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, much like the intelligent quotient test. We're going to see how emotional intelligence can help us when we navigate stakeholder emotions, team dynamics, resolve conflicts, etc. Got a quick question for everybody. Hello, Princeton. Got a quick question. Looking at the picture there that you see, uh, and that, by the way, is AI generated. But when you look at that, where does the style or look of it seem familiar? It's two recent movies, both within the last 5 to 6 years. Yes, Charlene, Pixar, but which movies in particular from Pixar? Yeah, Victoria, Inside Out. Yes, exactly. Inside Out 1 and 2. And I do have a little bit of inside in that. A person from Memphis, Tennessee, actually did a lot of the writing and drawing and designing for the anxiety character. So that's kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, emotional intelligence. That's a great movie. The Inside Out movies, I should say, is a great uh, vehicle for thinking about emotional intelligence. But a little bit about me. Remember, I said projects are all about relationships. And a little bit about me. When we are in a project, we want to make sure that people get to know each other. So we'll take this as a project. So here's a little bit about me. Um, and what I'm doing, what I do, what I like, things like that. We build that relationship in a project. And part of being able to build a relationship, of course, is emotional intelligence. So, Mariella, let's start off with a poll. We're going to ask a quick poll. Which one of these is not, note, is not a component of emotional intelligence? Mariella's got the timer on us. So we still have about 14 people that need to answer. Come on, let's see if we can get 100% participation in the poll. Getting there, closer. Nice, Kelsey. All right. We almost got 100%, 74% of it. So, which of these is not a component of emotional intelligence? Well, before we do that, let's take a look at what is emotional intelligence. Does anyone see self-service in that list? No, self-service is not in that list. So, when we think about emotional intelligence, thank you all for participating. We are looking at it's the ability to manage, understand, use our emotions and others. So we just don't do that in a vacuum. And when we think about emotional intelligence, we look at really four major areas: self awareness, being able to recognize our own emotions and how they impact others. About 2 or 3 o'clock any given afternoon, if I don't eat lunch, I get hangry. That's hungry and angry put together. And my wife and daughters used to tell me, "Dad, you're getting hangry. You're getting hangry." And I'd be like, "No, I'm not. Be quiet," And they'd say, "Here, eat a protein bar or a Snickers bar." And so I wasn't aware that because I hadn't eaten anything or how my emotions, how I was acting. So I didn't recognize that. Another is social awareness, understand and empathize with others' emotions. Sympathy and empathy. Those are two things that sometimes we confuse. Empathy is the ability to I will say easily to say, put yourself in someone else's place, or the other saying is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And that helps us understand. I can remember my father passed away suddenly in 2005, and we were at the funeral. And if any of you have ever been to a funeral or been in the immediate family of a family member, I know it's hard. There's usually a receiving line, and people come up and say, "So sorry for your loss," and all of that. And by the end of the visitation period, I was so sick of having people say, "I'm so sorry for your loss," and all of that. I had a really good friend of mine come up to me during the visitation, and we'd known each other since we were babies. And she said, "This time really sucks. There's no easy way to describe it. And take the time to grieve and take the time to celebrate." So she was able to empathize with me and not just sympathize. So that's an important component of emotional intelligence. Self-regulation is another one. If any of you have ever had children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, been around a lot of kids, kids are terrible at self-regulation of their emotions. I mean, just go to any airport or anywhere and watch a kid have a meltdown because they're hangry or because something didn't go their way. We have that happen all the time in work. If some of you may have been experienced where someone isn't able to manage their own emotions and they have a meltdown under pressure or something similar. And then, of course, relationship management. Relationship management is the fourth pillar or the fourth cornerstone of emotional intelligence, being able to build and maintain strong relationships. And that includes with the stakeholders of our projects. Because remember, a stakeholder is anyone that can be affected by, may be affected by, or is perceived to be affected by a project. That's a lot of folks that we need to build relationships with. Well, if I can't regulate my emotions, or if I'm not aware of others' emotions, or if I'm not aware of my own emotions, how can I have any type of relationship management? Keep that in mind as we walk through it. As a project manager, understanding how you and others are feeling, reacting, acting, etc., is really an advantage. And there are three main advantages when we think about emotional intelligence or EQ. One, better project outcomes. Project managers that have those four cornerstones are able to deliver superior results or better results. They're able to work a room, so to speak, or able to understand where someone else is coming from. I know that as a project manager, you get hit with all the time, or people, hey, I want to do this change, or I want to do that. And we're always trying to balance that. And one of the ways that we can help that is to understand where they're coming from. Where is this coming from? Or what's in it? What's important? A lot of times, the second one is anticipating resistance. We know that something is difficult. So maybe what we do is we lead with, hey, I understand this is going to be difficult to do. It's hard to do. So look at those emotional drivers and see if we can not necessarily counter them, but see if there are ways that we can help them with that. Say, I know it's going to be hard to do, and here's what I think we can do to help mitigate that or alleviate that. And third, if we're able to build that social awareness and build that relationship, of course, we're going to build stronger coalitions. And without that stronger coalition, we're not going to have trust. People aren't going to trust us. So if we do what we say we're going to do, and if we treat people with respect, then they're going to also. What's the old saying? A relationship is like a bank. And the more you put into the bank, the more interest you're going to accrue. So when it comes time to make a withdrawal, it's there. And remember, projects are all about relationships. And it starts with active listening. Active listening is the foundation. I mentioned the cornerstones. Well, now we've got a foundation of active listening. And active listening is not this. Not, oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, what's up? It's not being on your phone. It's not doing something else. It's being present. Um, I love the show Ted Lasso. Love it. I'm a big fanboy of Ted Lasso. There's a scene in there where the manager or the kit man, so to speak, the Wonder Boy. He gets elevated and goes to another um, organization and becomes the coach. Well, one of the people that he works with comes into his office, and this person has his back to them as they come into the office, and this person talks to him, and this person never once turns around and acknowledges them when they come into their office. Just ignores them. That's not active listening. Me checking my phone and acting is not active listening. What is active listening is maintaining eye contact. Not staring off, but maintaining eye contact. Paraphrasing. Oh, I heard you say, Is this correct? Asking questions, clarifying questions. Those three things are the fundamentals of active listening: eye contact, paraphrasing, and asking clarifying questions. Now, a lot of times as a project manager, we facilitate meetings. I always tell people, if you don't like communication, if you don't like email, and you don't like meetings, don't be a project manager, because we do all of those things repeatedly. And so, as a project manager, we need to have facilitating skills. And part of those facilitating skills relate to emotional intelligence. We need to involve others, quiet stakeholders. If we don't empathize or understand why they're being quiet, it might be hard to involve them, draw them out. We need to be able to handle dominant personalities or people that talk all the time in a meeting. If I'm uncomfortable with that, and if I can't manage my own emotions, it might be difficult for me to do the same with someone else. And the last one is diffusing conflict or tension in a meeting. If I grew up in a household, which I did, where um, conflict was never good, someone usually went away either hurt emotionally or hurt physically, it's never a great place to be. And so, if I, as a project manager, come from that background, I may not feel comfortable dealing with conflict in the project. And so I need to be aware of that. I need to understand that my emotions are impacting how well I can facilitate a meeting. And conflicts happen in projects, and we need to be aware of that. So as a project manager, understand how your emotions impact your facilitation of meetings. And of course, conflict resolution, a primary one. When we think about conflict resolution, the key in here is to recognize the emotions, read the room, understand body language. If someone's like this or someone's like this, those are indicators of, well, it could be they're cold, or more than likely they're not happy with something, or they're being protective. Someone's like this is being very assertive or potentially aggressive. You may want to connect with the person through empathy, you know, being careful how you phrase it. Um, One of the tricky things to say to somebody is, "Oh, you seem upset." How your tone is might inflame the situation. So you may want to say, "Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a break." In other words, not call somebody out, but let's say, "Oh, I need to take a break. I took some cold medicine this morning and it's not acting well, and I need to step out for a bit. Can we take a 10-minute break?" Diffuse the situation. Or, "Oh, hang on a second. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I need to take this. It's my wife. There's an emergency." Maybe not quite that big of a thing, but you may want to talk. And then lastly, the third one is collaborate for solutions. How can we work together? What is in it for both of us? So when we think about conflict resolutions, we need to know our emotions, we need to know others' emotions in the room, and we need to find out that point where we both can win something. Conflict resolution, a lot of times, is all about negotiation and being able to negotiate. And negotiations are important when we look at them through the emotional intelligence or the EQ lens. Read for those cues. How many of you like to negotiate? For me, one of the least places I like to negotiate is a car dealerships. So how many of you like to go to car dealerships and negotiate for a car? Anybody? Quick show of hands. Not so much, says David. Yeah. Uh, Charlene likes to go. All right, Charlene, the next time I'm going to buy a car, I'm gonna bring those of you that like to do it. I'm gonna bring y'all with me. Um, Sometimes they're not fun things. Be aware of that. So if I don't like that situation, and I know I don't like that situation, I'm not going to have good negotiating power because I think it's an uncomfortable situation. I don't like it. And in some case, only if I'm paying cash. Thanks, Pat. The triggered, if I get my responses triggered, I'm not going to be able to negotiate from a position that's going to make sure that we both win. And that's the goal, is to both come out of there. So when I go today to negotiate, and if I go to a car dealership, one of the things that I do is I say, here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I need. What do you need? It's an interesting tactic because it puts the person that's in the salesman role off. They're not used to somebody saying that. And my job, my goal is not to knock them off balance, but my job is to say, look, I'm trying to find a collaborative effort here where we both walk away feeling like you made some money and I got a good deal. So we want to shift from a position of that positional bargaining to problem solving. And that problem is the sale of the car or the vehicle. Last question or last thing before we open it up for questions is during a crisis. There are opportunities during a crisis for us to be able to self-regulate our own emotions. And if we're self-regulated, then we can help others. There's been multiple times that I've been in a project where we've had a crisis and someone has is become upset, agitated, angry, whatever the case may be. And by being calm and focusing on the solution, we've been able to work our way through it. If we don't do that, if we are not calm and if we don't focus on that, then we're not going to be able to manage stress. Our stress levels will be high. We won't be able to make clear decisions because we're operating from a position of stress versus calmness. And if we are calm, if I, as the project manager, am calm, it's going to calm others. It's not going to put them in a stressful situation. So as we think about that, we could spend hours talking about emotional intelligence and what it is, what it isn't, how we can do it. But I hope over the last, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we've given you a good foundation about emotional intelligence and where to go from there. And of course, we have a lot of opportunities, other classes if you're interested. Please visit us. I'm going to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions, Mariella, can you help moderate?
Hey, Brent. Absolutely. Thank you so much for all
You're
this
welcome.
fantastic info. I'm sure our audience finds it so helpful. I'll go ahead and give them a minute or two to throw in any questions or any feedback. I also went ahead and dropped in a little bit more info
Awesome. Thank you.
on the PMP, where we will learn all of this and more, I'm sure. Um,
Yes.
so I will go ahead and let that linger for a bit. And I'll go ahead and give our audience a second, but we had a lot of great feedback throughout the session.
Yes.
So a lot of really awesome
Thank you,
topics
David.
really resonated. Thanks, David. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for participating in the poll earlier, and thanks so much for joining us today. Again, if you want to learn any more info on this topic or want to learn a little bit more about the PMP, I went ahead and dropped that link in the chat, or you can go ahead and visit us at projectmanagementacademy.net. Awesome. Oh, and nice. Yeah, we
Eh,
just got
eh,
some nice
oh,
little feedback.
good. Awesome. Thanks, Charlene.
Oh,
And
awesome.
and if any of you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do.
Absolutely. Brent will always be here to answer all your questions, and this is me signing up Brent to answer all your questions. So thank
And
you
you
all
do a good
again.
job of that.
Awesome. Try and make it sound as casual as possible. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us again. And of course, thank you, Brent, for all this fantastic info.
You're
So
welcome. Thank you.
hopefully we'll see you all very soon in the classroom. But for now, have a fantastic rest of your week and we'll talk soon. Alrighty. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.